Thank you, Madam President. That has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Thank you, President Barry, for your kind introduction, and thank you to the board of the Washington Press Club Foundation for the honor of being with you this evening. Let us congratulate tonight's honoree, Susan Page, who is receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award, and Melissa Burke, who is receiving the David Lynch Award for Regional Journalism. Susan, I'm delighted to join you on 80 years of this annual dinner. 80 years of this dinner. 80 years is truly a remarkable milestone. In Congress, we respect 80 years as that much longevity as institutional memory. Soon after I was, let me just go. These pages are sticking together. I'm sticking to my notes because if I don't, I would go very long. You don't want that. The Women's National Press Club, as was mentioned, was created at a time when women journalists were excluded from professional opportunities, shut out from press rooms, denied recognition that they were earning. But your founders did not accept the status quo. They organized, they persisted. They fought for access, for credibility, for a seat at the table, and they proved again and again that women belong there all along. And that is an applause line. And they proved that women belong there all along. I can identify with that because when I first ran for leadership, the men said, "Who said she could run?" Poor babies, poor babies. Soon after I was elected, it was my honor to host a retirement dinner for the legendary Washington journalist, Mary McCrory. Now, some of you are too young to remember Mary. Many of you are too young. But at that dinner that we had in the Capitol, my office was the leader's office, but that had been the office that Tip O'Neill used as speaker. So Mary loved that we were in Tip's suite to honor her. Tip came over, Ted Kennedy came over, and he talked about what Mary had done at the Washington Star when she started out. John Lewis was there, and he said Mary used her pen as a sword to fight for civil rights and other things. Father Drinan was there, and also was Barney Frank. And we all made the point that the Pope must have been very happy that Father Drinan, a Jesuit member of Congress, Pope insisted that he leave office and was replaced by one of the first gay men to serve in the Congress of the United States, Barney Frank. And Father Drinan was there and saying, "We're getting ready for the resurrection." That's what he said. Mary was recognized as one of the first queens of journalism. And you know what? When she started out, they said, "We don't want you making any fuss." You know, she was new, a new woman. "We don't want you making any trouble, any fuss." She said, "Well, that's exactly what I came here to do." And in fact, that's what I intend to do. And she won a Pulitzer Prize. So I bring up Mary McCrory because she's just one of many women who were leaders at that time, and I was honored to honor her upon her retirement in the Capitol of the United States. Just a few years later, then, I was elected Speaker and had the privilege of addressing the dinner shortly thereafter. I remember the evening very well for the history and the progress we had both made. Tonight, we honor the contribution of women in journalism. All right. Okay, you're out there. I hear you now. And those who have covered Congress across generations. And all of us eagerly await the humor of Kat and Madeline, which I know will be done in the spirit of bipartisanship. Because in our democracy, defense of the First Amendment can and should be bipartisan. I always say the press is the guardian of our democracy, and that's how I view you. One such guardian is my friend Jimmy Lai, a British Hong Kong journalist imprisoned in Beijing for printing the truth. At the request of Jimmy's family, I asked Speaker Johnson to call out this matter of Jimmy's persecution when he spoke to the House of Commons a couple of weeks ago. when he spoke to the House of Commons a couple of weeks ago. This was a big honor for our country that the Speaker was invited in this, our bicentennial year, to speak at the House of Commons. And the Speaker did call out the need for Jimmy Lai to be free, and I'm very grateful for him for doing that. So in a bipartisan way, we support our journalists around the world. As we recently acknowledged Martin Luther King Day last week, we spent it all week in San Francisco. That's a whole week. I recalled that when he and his wife when he and Coretta went to India in the 50s, and they went to learn more about what Gandhian nonviolence was about. And when he was there, he learned that the word for nonviolence in Sanskrit, satyakaya, means two things. It means nonviolence, and it means insistence on the truth. Insistence on the truth. Dr. King understood that the truth must be spoken, defended, and carried forward by those who have the courage to do so, and I see a room full of courage here tonight. That sacred responsibility to stand for the truth is a responsibility for all of us. But it has long been the special calling of the press. You who have been among the great practitioners of that insistence on the truth, even when it required great risk, sacrifice, and fortitude. It is that spirit of satyagraha, with truth as a moral obligation, that must guide us still. Because make no mistake, the First Amendment is under siege here at home. You know that better than anyone. Facts are challenged, truth is distorted, and the press is treated by those in power as an enemy, fake news they call it, rather than treat the press as a vital partner. We see efforts to intimidate journalists, to discredit legitimate reporting, and to replace evidence with conspiracy. That is not accidental, it is a strategy. Those who fear transparency and accountability fear the press. Just in the last month, we have seen, it was referenced earlier, we have seen fear made real, from the arrest of Don Lemon for his reporting to the raid on the home of a Washington Post journalist. These incidents are an affront to the press freedom and it's meant to scare, to chill, and to silence. But amid that political intimidation, we must also reckon with an ongoing and accompanying threat. Today, we saw painful layoffs at the Washington Post, part of a broader reprehensible pattern in which corporate decisions are hollowing out newsrooms across the country. When corporate interests gut local, national, and international journalism, communities lose watchdogs, truth loses megaphones, and democracy loses guardians. A free press cannot fulfill its mission if it is starved of its resources it needs to survive. And when the newsrooms are weakened, our republic is weakened with it. Because democracy dies in darkness. Are we all ready to say that together? Democracy dies in darkness. Democracy dies in darkness. At the same time, new rules governing the Pentagon Press Corps have raised serious concerns about access, independence, and the ability of journalists to do their jobs without fear of retaliation. This is not the first time our nation has been confronted with the issue of whether national security will be used as a reason or an excuse to limit press freedom. And I must warn all of you, my friends in the press, that I'm now going to engage in a little self-promotion. They say self-promotion is a terrible thing, but somebody's got to do it. And I want to tell you this story. Back in 2000, maybe some of you were here then, maybe not, it was a long time ago. Back in 2000, my communications director, Ira, he's so excellent, but he did remind me that he was born that year. Back in 2000, the Republican Congress passed an intelligence, and with Democratic cooperation. This was a bipartisan bill, but it was a Republican majority. And this affects you, so you may want to hear it. The Republican Congress passed an intelligence bill that included provisions that would have criminalized legitimate press reporting on national security. What they wanted to do in the bill, and this is really important, was to place the burden of proof on the journalist as to whether his or her reporting harmed national security, rather than what we wanted, which was that the burden of proof is on the government to prove that what the reporter was reporting was harming national security. This was a very big difference. At the time, I was the top, here I come bragging. At the time, I was the top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee. While I could not stop the bill's passage, I did take it to President Clinton to hopefully get a veto. He understood completely what was at risk. After learning of the provision, President Clinton vetoed the bill and said his words were, "unnecessarily chilled legitimate activities that are the heart of a democracy." Thereby, President Clinton helped protect the First Amendment. Today, we are again witnessing actions meant to chill the First Amendment, most fundamental freedoms. Let us be clear, attacks on journalism are attacks on the American people's right to know, and attempts to undermine a free press are attempts to undermine the Constitution and democracy itself. That is why tonight is not only a celebration, but is a reminder, a solemn reminder that we must protect and defend the freedom, and we must insist on the truth. Because America is in a crisis of conscience. We have a president who has crowned himself king, a Congress which has abolished itself, and a Supreme Court that has gone rogue. Our First Amendment, a free and independent press, the Fourth Estate, is essential to the survival of our republic. To all the journalists in this room, they just want to talk, and to all the journalists in this room and beyond here, the American people are counting on you, the press, to know your power. We know you do, and we appreciate that. You know your power and to use it. You know the power of the facts to defeat disinformation. You know better than anyone the power of questions to expose truth, the power of your work to inform the American people and to strengthen our democracy. We celebrate the 250th year of America's independence. Today was the day that George Washington was elected President of the United States, on this day. And oh good, George Washington gets a hand. And my dear friend Jamie Raskin just gave me a quote from Thomas Jefferson. And he said, "If I were to choose a country with a government without a press, or the press without the government, I would choose the latter." I would choose the latter. Thank you, Jamie. Another great American, Benjamin Franklin, you know, was asked after the Constitutional Convention, when it concluded, what form of government was created. He replied, "A republic, if we can keep it. You know that." Ladies and gentlemen of the press, it is your voices, integrity, persistence, and courage that will, as our national anthem declares, give proof through the night that our flag is still there, and as we pledge with liberty and justice for all. Keeping our republic depends on you. It has always depended on you. Thank you, members of the press, for your patriotism for your patriotism. Thank you for your patriotism. God bless America. Enjoy the evening. Thank you.